Thank you, my brother. So the sad thing is that I'm the only thing between all of us and a great glass of wine. So let's get this, over and done with, so we can actually enjoy some good fellowship. So, firstly, I'm so grateful that you're all here. We'll talk about it more tomorrow, but when Stan and I refired from our roles at WD-40, Stan had this dream. He said, "Why don't we try and put together something where we can share our learning moments?" Well, at some time, the dream turned into a nightmare as we started to put this together, but now the dream has come true. So thank you, Stan, for the inspiration. Interesting that Davin mentioned this great field. Do you know what this is? This is the stadium at Notre Dame. And why I'm showing it to you is I was there again this year when we were at the summit, the Purpose Summit, and I was looking out on this field. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, this field seats 82,000 people. Wow. And I actually got to walk on the grass. And I thought, why are 82,000 people going to that stadium? So why do you think those 82 people 1,000 people go to that stadium? Anybody, why do you think they go there? Emotional connection. Experience. To enjoy themselves, right? To really get something from the game that's being played. And I thought, well, that's true. And I thought, business is something like that. Because our job as leaders is to create an atmosphere where those that we serve, our customers, are entertained and enjoy what they're doing. I thought, that's pretty cool. And then I started to think about it in relation to the business, and I thought, what would happen if these 82,000 customers all gathered in this field? They're excited, they're there, they're waiting for the players to run on the field. And the players ran on the field, and someone forgot to put up the goalposts. Oh, and the coaches were in the locker room. How was the team going to be gauged to play? And the timekeepers and the refs were locked out. So how were the rules and the values going to be shared? And what would happen to the players on the field? Because they had no goalposts, they didn't know how to win, they'd run around and get exhausted. So at the end of the day, if we're not there to help our players play the best game by being great coaches, having values that protect them and set them free, how the hell are we going to excite the customers that we serve? And having been the CEO of a US public company for 25 years, I understand that this is not about kumbaya, ping pong, and pizza eating on a Friday. We have to deliver to those we serve as shareholders to be allowed to survive. But as the quote came from Patricia, profit is the applause of people doing great work, which simply gets down to, why are we there? To help people do great work. Leadership is a balance between being tough-minded and tender-hearted, while not protecting our own comfort zone at the expense of other people's development. And I love that final sentence, and I stole it from Ron, who's speaking tomorrow, because so often being a great coach means you have to have those conversations that are sometimes uncomfortable, and we protect our own comfort zone by not having them. But how are we helping people play their best game if we don't have those conversations? And in organizations, words matter. And let's think about the word manager. You manage your bank account, you manage inventory, you don't manage people. We're there to coach our people. We're there to be mentors to our people. We're there to be leaders for our people. Let's forget about having policies, and what about if we had guidelines? Because people in organizations want to make choices. They want the freedom of choice. So give them guidelines, or not rules but values, to help them make those choices. Because there's two things people want in organizations. They want to know they belong, and they want to know they matter. When I was chairman and CEO of WD-40 Company, I used to just enjoy introducing myself, and I'd say, "G'day, I'm Garry Ridge. I'm the consciously incompetent, probably wrong and roughly right chairman and CEO of WD-40 Company." Probably wrong and roughly right. And why did I say that? Because it was true. I didn't have all the answers. The three most important words I ever learned in my life were "I don't know" and getting comfortable with them. And it was my opportunity to create an environment where those that I had the privilege to lead could bring out the best of themselves, and we could help them do that. So let's think about our role as a coach. One of the things we did is we took the word manager out, and everybody is called a coach. And I love this quote from Adam Grant: "It's easy to be a critic or a cheerleader. It's harder to be a coach. A critic sees your weaknesses and attacks your worst self. A cheerleader sees your strengths and celebrates your best self. A coach sees your potential and helps you become the better version of yourself." So our role is to help people become the better person of themselves. But we have to understand who we are first. And I was fortunate enough back in 1999, 2000, to find out who I really was as a leader. In 1997, I was given the opportunity to lead WD-40 as the CEO. I'd been in the US for 3 years. I came here from Australia in 1994. I'd started with the company in 1987. And when I was given that privilege, I was scared, but I wasn't afraid. And I thought to myself, how do we create an organization that can do what we saw was our dream, which was to take the blue and yellow can with the little red top to the world? But to do that, we had to create an organization that could be empowered within itself. I was traveling on a plane, Qantas aircraft, a 747. I was at 38,000 feet, somewhere over the water of the Pacific Ocean. And as you do when you're on planes, you take a whole bunch of stuff with you that you want to read. So I was reading some stuff, and I first read this statement, and it said, "Our purpose in life is to make people happy. If we can't make them happy, at least don't hurt them." And I thought, wow, what a great purpose that would be. That was attributed to the Dalai Lama. I thought, that's pretty cool. What about if our purpose was to make people happy, but at least don't hurt them? Because in organizations, being tough-minded and tender-hearted, you could hurt people, but you can't always make them happy. And then I was reading another piece, and it came from Aristotle. And Aristotle was born in 384 BC. And he said, "Pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work." And I went, oh, duh. Yes, if we really enjoy what we're doing, aren't we going to be better at it? So those two things were just swirling in my brain. How could we create? Now, let me tell you, WD-40's culture wasn't bad. It was good for what it had to do at the time. At that time, we were basically a US company with most of our revenues here, and we were a lot smaller, but we had to expand. So we had to create freedom within the organization. So we knew that micromanagement wasn't going to be scalable. So this is swelling in my head. And I get back to San Diego, and I pick up the Union Tribune, the local paper, and I start reading an article, and it talks about this program that's starting at the University of San Diego. And it's a Master of Science in Executive Leadership. And I went to an information session, and I heard Scott's dad, Ken, speak. And Ken said, "The most problems with an MBA program is they get people in the head. We also got to start getting people in the heart." And I thought, wow, what if we had not a head count, but a heart count? Not a head count, but a heart count. So I applied. And here I am, 2 years into being CEO of a public company, and I'm going back to school. I'm going to confirm what I thought I knew and learn what I didn't know. And I can remember the first class, which was all about understanding who you are as a person. Because before you can lead others, you need to know who you are. And the class was, I was chatting with the classmates there at the time. They said, "What are you doing here? You're already a CEO." I said, "Yeah, I know, but I don't know how to do it." So I better learn. So we started, and every weekend that I went to, there was a class and a learning. And I know in this room now, we've probably got 5 or 6 people that are, have master's degrees in that degree. And in fact, I loved that program so much, and it was so foundational to our thinking. We sent north of 30 people through that master's program over a 20-year period to learn what it was like to build great cultures. So to me, I was okay saying I was probably wrong and roughly right, because in most circumstances I was. So if we think about that role of a coach that we're learning to be, so what is the role of the coach? Well, the role of the coach is define what a win looks like. What is an A? The second thing is, what are we going to hold each other accountable for? Because accountability goes 2 ways. What do you expect from me? What do I expect from you? And how are we going to hold each other accountable? What values or rules do we play by? The reason Jim was here today, or the reason I invited him, was because he was so influential in that early stage of putting our values together. His book, The Leadership Challenge, was a textbook in the MSEL program. And that's where I learned the importance of having a set of values that protected people and set them free. And each one of the values at WD-40 Company actually has a paragraph written underneath those words. So you saw the first one is, we value doing the right thing. We actually write a paragraph of what doing the right thing looks like, so that wherever the leaders are, if they happen to leave for a year, they know that this is the behavior that we live by. So what values do we play by? So Jim was fundamental in helping us think about it. And then Ken said to me, not only do you have to have a great set of values, you have to have a set of values that are hierarchical, so that the first value has more strength than the last one. And you might have noticed our last value was we value sustaining the WD-40 economy, which loosely translated in Wall Street terms means make money. But why is it the last one? Because if we live the other 5, the last one happens. Because you have to have a strong economy in the business to be able to sustain over time. And you'll only have that if people are going to work, enjoying what they're doing, and stepping into the best version of their personal self. And you have to continually help the players play their best game. So if we had a coaching contract, a great coach is committed to helping players get an A. Number 1 is brave. Not protecting their own comfort zone at the expense of someone else's growth. Number 2 is they know the game and what it takes to win. So as great leaders, we have to be continual learners and teachers. Number 3 is we don't run on to the field to take the ball. How many great coaches have you seen in any game run onto the field and take the ball? We don't do it. That's called micromanagement. We've got to let people play their game. We spend a lot of time on the sideline watching the play. Why? Because we want to observe how the player is playing their best or not so best game. My daughter, Kate, is a dance teacher. And she gave me some great advice many years ago. She said, "Dad, if you're training a dancer to dance on Broadway, you must have them dance off Broadway first. But before you put them under the heavy, bright lights, you have to be able to see the steps that they need to either improve on or do something about." And really, that's the role of a coach, is to watch them dance. So people within your organization, watch them dance, watch them play, and then be brave enough to have that conversation. They have to add value to the player with feedback on how they can improve the play. They never, ever, ever, ever go to the podium and pick up the prize. Now, you might see great coaches standing next to the podium getting a bucket of ice thrown on them, and that's okay. but never go to the podium to pick up the prize. They spend much time in the locker room building trust. So important. So important that as leaders, it's not about being in your office. It's not about being isolated on your own. It's about getting in the locker room, spending time with the people, listening to what they have to say, showing them that you care. And you know what? Sweeping out the locker room sometimes. Picking up those pieces of paper on the floor, cleaning things up, showing by your behavior and actions what's important within the organization. Jim had a great example of that this morning about a manufacturing organization where the leader went out and started to pick up that trash and put it in the bucket. And what happened the next day? So the followers did that, because culture is a shadow of the leadership. If you're going to be coached, you agree with what an A looks like and you're committed to it. You agree that you'll accept feedback, and you agree that from time to time we might even ask the people in the bleachers how they think we're playing, because they're the ones that we have to delight. When poor performers are rewarded, it calls into question your company's values and erodes your culture and causes your best people to leave. That's why we've got to have those crucial conversations. There are 4 pillars that are so important. The pillar of care. We have to love and care about our people, not only to reward them and applaud them for doing great work, but we're brave enough to redirect them when they're not playing to get an A. We have to be candid with them, and I believe candor is no lying, no faking, no hiding. I believe most people don't lie. I believe in organizations they fake and hide. Why do they fake and hide? Because of fear. Because they might have to walk down that death row. So let's hide the mistakes. We wouldn't be here today if WD-40 Company didn't treasure 70 years ago the learning moment. And I don't know if you know the story, but around 1953 there was a problem with condensation and corrosion in the umbilical cord of the Atlas space rocket. A couple of chemists got together at a company called Rocket Chemical Company here in San Diego, and they started to mix formulas to see if they could solve the problem. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. You know where I'm going with this, right? The 40th formula worked. Thank God they didn't give up at 39. And more importantly, thank God 39 didn't work, because I don't think WD-39 sounds as good as WD-40. They didn't care about hiding because they knew that to get to the answer they had to keep trying. So most people in organizations don't lie, they fake and hide. And who causes them to do that? It's the fear of leadership. Accountability. Are we clear? What do I expect from you? What do you expect from me? And what does an A look like? And then responsibility. And Patricia covered that with our great Maniac Pledge. Accountability is doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it to the standard you're supposed to do it to. There are 3 things. And are we clear about all 3? This came from Dr. Amber Selkin, a friend of ours. She's the team's mental performance coach at Notre Dame, LSU, and the Denver Broncos. But in a lot of cases, we forget there's 3 things. What we're supposed to do, when we're supposed to do it, and what we're supposed to, and the standard we're supposed to do it to. So if an A walked in the room tonight, what would it look like? Responsibility equals accountability and ownership. A sense of ownership is the most powerful weapon a team or organization can have. And how do they get ownership? By having a clear purpose within an organization where they feel safe. I wonder what Simon says.
I don't think you could motivate people. People either are motivated or unmotivated. I think you can inspire people. And you know, you can motivate people with sticks and carrots, you know, offer them bounty or threaten punishment, and you'll get behavior that you want. Is there loyalty? Is there love? Absolutely not. Usually, when people are unmotivated, it's not necessarily them. It might be the situation they're in. Maybe they don't belong in the culture. Maybe they feel unseen or unheard. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're unprepared. So we have to, when somebody's unmotivated, let's not label them as unmotivated first. What are the 20 other things that it could also be? Let's start there. Now, are there some people in the world who are unmotivated? Absolutely. You hired them, which means you bear some responsibility if it's time to transition them, to help them find another place where they're going to be a better fit. We can't yell at them and call them stupid and unmotivated and push them out the door. We have to bear some of the responsibility. We hired them. And if we made a mistake and hired somebody who's a bad cultural fit, then we have to take care of them and help them transition to somewhere where they're going to be a better fit. I think that if we only focus on motivating people, and that's a factor, then you're only going to get very finite thinking. An excessive amount of motivating things, like hit this number, get this bonus, you'll get a motivated employee pool that doesn't care about each other, might stab each other in the back, and eventually will take a better job somewhere else. We have to inspire people. We have to give them that sense of cause and vision that their work is worth more. We have to make them feel like they matter and feel like they're seen and heard and understood. And what ends up happening is those people are not only more motivated and inspired, but if they're offered a better, higher paying job somewhere else, they turn it down. Because it's not just about the bonuses and the money, it's because they would rather be here with these wonderful people.
So there are two real lessons from that. One of them we heard from Rochelle earlier is the time and effort we take in bringing the right people into our culture. So important. And the other one is, once we bring them in, are we creating the culture where people know they belong, know they matter, feel valued, and will they stay? Because culture is not an initiative, culture is an enabler of all initiatives. Culture equals, do you like that? Even a retired CEO can do that. A refired CEO can do that even. So in Simon's book, The Infinite Game, he had this equation. He had culture equals values plus behavior. And I am fortunate enough to know Simon and have been a friend of his for many years. And I called him up and I said, Simon, I think you forgot something. He said, tell me more. I said, you forgot the word consistency. Because culture equals, and the equals sign means happens when, values plus behavior, close parentheses, are executed consistently. And we've heard that this morning. Culture, you can't go into a company and sprinkle fairy dust on it and change the culture. Charlie Maloof, who runs a great operation of Ashley furniture stores out in the Charlotte area, said, culture is not a microwave event. It's more like a crock pot. And that is so true. So culture equals, parentheses, values plus behavior, and you have to do it consistently. When I was going to high school, I went to Drummoyne Boys High School in Sydney, Australia. And that's a picture of my science lab. And when I pulled up the picture, I thought, oh yeah, I remember that. It was more like a jail by the look of things. Why am I sharing this with you? Well, in my science class one day, my science teacher gave me a petri dish. And the science teacher said, what we're going to do is we're going to grow culture in this petri dish. And there are two things that are really important. What you put in the petri dish to grow the culture, and how you take care of that petri dish or maintain it during the growth of culture. So, if we were building great cultures in an organization, what ingredients do you need in your petri dish to grow the right culture? Well, number one, you have to have a people-first mindset. You have to have coaches, not managers. A coach's role, as I've said, is there to help the player you have the privilege to lead play their best game. You have to have a clearly defined and authentic purpose. You have to have a hierarchical set of values that protect people and set them free. You have to have transparency and a simple vision so people understand what it is that we're trying to achieve. You have to have learning moments that reduce fear, and I'll talk a bit more about the learning moment in a moment. You have to have belonging, acceptance, connectedness, security, support, inclusion, and identity, all of the things that Scott shared with us earlier that maybe we weren't aware of. How do we become advocates? How do we become not cover-ups, but understanding that these are important? We have to have care, candor, accountability, and responsibility. And we have to have brave accountability and behavior. Because as a leader, it's a balance between being tough-minded and tender-hearted. It's a balance between having a heart of gold and a backbone of steel. It's simple, it's not easy, and time is not your friend. Psychological safety is so important. Any of you are aware of the work of Amy Edmondson, where she talks about psychological safety. The comfort of admitting mistakes is where you learn from failure, where everyone openly shares and feels, and better innovation and decision-making happen. Her new book is out now, The Right Side of Wrong. If you haven't read it, it's a great read. But in a psychological danger, it's the fear of admitting mistakes that drive all of the bad stuff. So, you know how we learn. We learn from theory, a little bit. We learn from practice, a little bit more. But we learn a lot from mistakes. The problem is that word, mistakes. You know, it's not fun to run down a corridor and say, I'm a failure. I failed today. I'm a failure. So why don't we use the words that it really is and say, it's not about mistakes. It's about learning moments. Watch this.
Good one.
I wrote the last equation wrong on purpose because I wanted you to learn something important. Now, you all witnessed I wrote the correct equation 9 times, but nobody congratulated me on that, did you? But as soon as I made a mistake, you laughed and criticised me. Why do you think that is?
Maybe it's because you're supposed to be smarter than us?
Yeah, and it's funny.
I may be in a position of authority, but it doesn't make me perfect or smarter than you. I'm a teacher, but I'm also a human being who makes mistakes. The point of this exercise today is to teach a very important lesson. You will soon discover the world is quick to criticise and find fault, and much slower to praise and find the positive. You'll all experience criticism many times in your life. Those who are lucky enough to succeed or become quote unquote successful will likely experience more criticism than the rest, because you'll find the one thing people love more than pointing out another's mistakes is when they can do it to someone who's achieved more than them. However, the person who criticises others is only revealing the lack within themselves. Those who are happy within themselves need not point out the faults in others. So the 3 things I want you to remember from today's little exercise is, first, try to notice the good in others. If someone makes a mistake, try to let them know in a kind way. Praise more than you blame. The second is when, not if, but when you're criticised, remember the good in you. Remember your great qualities. Remember you're worthy and capable of great things. And finally, remember criticism is something that you can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. So dream big. Get out there, live your life. See how far you can push the limits. Don't fear criticism, but know when it comes, it's the result of your success, not your failures.
So, as a leader, you're going to be criticized because of your success. You'll learn that no good deed goes unpunished. You'll learn that being able to encourage people to take the swing of the bat, knowing that if they miss, you'll help them improve their swing, is what's important. So don't be afraid. But it's not going to be easy. It's simple, it's not easy, and time is not your friend. You have to be the leader consistently because you're the one that's on the stage. They're watching every step you're making. They're filling in every gap. And I love the quote from Brené Brown, in the absence of facts and data, we make up stories. They're talking about you at home at dinner. What are they saying? And are you the leader that when that wonderful Outlook program actually posts a meeting on someone else's calendar, they call in sick in advance because they don't want to be with you? That's not helping people grow. That's why two things that people want is they want to know they belong and they want to know they matter. Maslow worked it out in his hierarchy to self-actualization. Most organizations create the two levels of psychological need and safety: food, shelter, warmth, security, and health. But connection, love and belonging is the one that we all fall down on in a lot of organizations. Because we don't take the time to ask, how are you? What's on your mind? Before we ask, why didn't you get your sales target? What's getting in the way of you doing great work? Are the questions that we need to ask. What's underneath that cloud that's causing you not to be your best self? And are you showing that we care about it? Love and belonging is so important in organizations. And the word love is fine. Alan Mulally, who turned Ford around from losing $18 billion to one of the most profitable companies during hard times, his first principle is love them up. And he tells a great story around that, is loving them up doesn't mean that every learning moment is equal. It means that within an organization, we understand that we respect people for who they are, but we also have zero tolerance for people who don't live our values, because that shows those in our organizations that we really do stand behind what we do. We had a tribal culture at WD-40 Company, and the reason we have that is not because we're paying attention to any indigenous group or any symbol of indigenous people. It's because tribalism is where we all started. Ugg the caveman was part of a tribe. And the number one responsibility of a tribal leader is to be a learner and a teacher. Let me give you an example of that. Imagine we could all get in a time capsule now and go back thousands of years to my home country, Australia. And let's go out into the middle of the desert, near Uluru, which was once called Ayers Rock. And let's be peeking around from a coolabah tree that's next to a billabong and be observing a group of indigenous people at their tribal meeting. What would the tribal leader be doing? The great tribal leader would be teaching the tribe members to throw a boomerang. Why? Because the boomerang is the tool of survival. If you couldn't throw a boomerang, you couldn't survive and defend your tribe. So without doubt, the number one responsibility we have as tribal leaders is to be learners and teachers, continual learners, continual teachers. The next one, of course, is values. We've talked about that. We need to belong. We have to be future-focused. What happens if that billabong that we were camped next to was starting to dry up? And as leaders, we weren't paying attention to that, and soon the water would be gone and the tribe would die because they had nothing to hydrate themselves. So we have to be future-focused. We have to have specialized skills. We have to recognize within organizations that there's stuff that we can't do. And we have to find the people to fill those places. So respecting all of the operations is so important. We have to be warriors. At WD-40 Company, we were a group of people that came together to protect and feed each other. Protect and feed each other. There was a great lesson of that going through COVID. it was January 2021, we were a year into COVID. And I was really lucky at that time because as we entered COVID, Steve, who's now our CEO, was my COO. So we were riding this motorcycle together. There was a lot of things changing in the world, and every day we were updating ourselves on what was going on. But I was concerned about us draining cultural equity because our culture of connectedness had become virtual, which is one of the things that's really concerning me right now, is we're having conversations about come back to work and we're sort of framing it like, oh, because you can be more productive. It's not about being productive. It's about connection. We need connection with the people that we deal with. We need to build those personal relationships. I take my hat off to Seth. He's in the audience right now, and I have the privilege of being on the board of Eastridge. And Seth was brave enough to say to his people, we're going to come back together a couple of days a week because building relationships and staying connected is the fuel that will keep our culture in place. And interestingly enough, when that came out, there were a few people I know in the organization, I don't want to do that. I was in the offices just the other day visiting one of their folks, and I went over to a stand-up table, and there was a group of ladies sitting around the table at lunchtime, all enjoying some lunch. And I said, how is it? Isn't that good? Yeah, what's it like to be back together? And they said, you know what? We didn't know we would like it. But you know what? We actually missed each other. And it's so good to come together here, you know, at this table and be able to have this conversation and share our points of view. And I know Ashley's going to talk tomorrow a lot about the power of connection. But when we were in January in 2021, we were concerned about draining cultural equity because of this evaporation of connection. So we went out and we did an interim employee opinion survey. And as someone said earlier, we had a very high employee engagement and pretty high numbers on others. 98% of the people at the company say they love to tell people they work at the company. 97% say they think their values align with our values, the company's values. 96% said they are confident that 96% said that they knew what was expected of them, so we were communicating, expectations. Anyhow, the results came back, and there was one number that came back that I was surprised at, and the number was 98% of the people in the company said they were excited about their place in the company's future. Now, where were we? January 2021, in the deepness of COVID. There was news that we may well have a vaccine, but it wasn't confirmed. The world was in complete uncertainty and turmoil. Why the hell would people be excited about their place in the company's future? So we dug into that a little bit. And here's the message that we got. They said, I feel safe. If I have to be anywhere now, I want to be here because we are a group of people that are coming together to protect and feed each other. And day one that COVID hit, we went out and we said, there are only 3 things that we're going to focus on until this is over. And the first one was the safety and the well-being of our people. The second one was serving our customers as best we can as we go through the turmoil. And the third one was protecting the underbody of our business so we could thrive when this was over, because we had hope that it would be over. And we wanted to make sure that we could thrive when it would be over. But 98% of our people, that number went up to 90 because they said they felt safe. Because we were there saying that we are here to protect our people. And then we want to be warriors, of course, and then we want to celebrate. And WD-40 is pretty good at celebrating. We could do that okay. And we were celebrating in good times, and we actually celebrated in not so good times. Because I truly believe life is a gift, and you better not send it back unwrapped, because there's a lot of unwrapping we should do. So you might ask me why I've got this crazy little doll in my pocket. I want to introduce you to someone. This is Al, or Alice, the soul-sucking CEO of Fear Inc. If you didn't pick up your Al doll or Alice doll outside, I have a box of them here. I give them away because I tend to hear, after talking about Al or Alice, they find their way onto people's desks. And in fact, I am sure if Al or Alice was alive at the time when Patricia was working at Fear Inc., there would have been a lot of these put on desks. But I created this doll because it gives me the opportunity to talk about the behaviors of leaders that create these toxic cultures. So let's have a look at some of those. The first one is Al or Alice has a big ego and little empathy. I often say that his ego or her ego eats their empathy instead of their empathy eating their ego. It's all about me, me, me. Is a micromanager. Oh boy, always running onto the field, wanting to take the ball, always wanting to micromanage every situation, not giving people the opportunity to learn and to achieve. They think they're corporate royalty. I've spent my life climbing up this corporate ladder. Do you think I'm going to go to the canteen to drink tea with you? Bring me my coffee. And don't park in my private parking space. And make sure that I have the biggest office in the building because I'm corporate royalty. Do you think that actually brings people together? No. They want a fear-based culture because they think it's fear. It's that stick that drives performance. Is a master of control. Is a know-it-all. Doesn't think about learning. Does not value learning. Must always be right. Hates feedback. Has all the answers, even the wrong ones. And does not keep commitments. And it's interesting how Jim touched on that this morning. Does not keep commitments. But Ken says saying you're a servant leader is a good start, but it's your behavior that makes it real for people. And when I talk about the three most influential people in my leadership style, I talk about the Dalai Lama, Aristotle, and Ken Blanchard. And Ken said to me, "Can't you put me in any better company than that?" Jokingly. But let's think about the behaviors of a true servant leader. Leaders involve and love their people. Leaders are always in servant leadership mode. We are there to serve the people. Because everybody who walks into our companies every day or gets online every day is someone's precious husband, wife, sister, daughter, auntie or uncle. And it's our privilege to serve them. Leaders are expected to be competent. I learned that when I went back to school. I didn't know. I was scared, not afraid. And again, continual learning is so important. They are connected with emotional intelligence. They know how to read the room. They are there for the people when their people need them, not ignoring them because of some priority that they have. Leaders love learning moments because they know after 39 there's going to be something beautiful is going to happen. Leaders have a heart of gold and a backbone of steel. No good deed goes unpunished. You're going to have to make tough decisions, but if you do it with justice, treating people with respect and dignity, if you do what you think is right and you do your best, make peace with it. If you do what you think is right and you did your best, make peace with it. Leaders are champions of hope. I had my little badge on, and I think hope is my number one value. I love, and I'm truly engaged when I think about hope, because hope is the only thing you can't take away from us. And the world today needs a lot of hope, and it's there. So let's just be these champions of hope, because if we see the way we can make it better, we can. Leaders know micromanagement isn't scalable, and leaders do what they say they're going to do, and they treasure the gift of feedback. So Garry's top 10 plus 1. Do we have a clear, meaningful, and easily understood vision and mission? Do we have the right people in the right seats on the bus? Have we brought people in that meet our values? Are we creating a culture of increased employee engagement by showing people that they belong and they matter? Do we have tribe members that know what an A looks like, and are we supporting them to get that A? Do we have a meaningful BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, and have we communicated it to our tribe? That's the dream. The dream of taking the blue and yellow can with little red top to the world. When we first said that, people say, you're crazy. Now that blue and yellow can with little red tops in 176 countries around the world, the sun never sets on the blue and yellow can with a little red top. What are we doing to maximize the spirit of internal, external learning? Are our products and service creating positive, lasting memories for our customers because our people are doing great work because they know that the culture is there to support them? Do we have the best timely data and information to help us make good business decisions so we're not flying blind? Are the key performance indicators the right one and we are actually measuring what matters? How do we celebrate success? Because leadership is a balance between being tough-minded and tender-hearted while not protecting our comfort zone at the expense of someone else's growth, because pleasure in the job does put perfection in the work. Aristotle told us that. We're just slow learners. And I believe that purpose-driven, passionate people guided by their values create amazing outcomes. And why can I say that? Because it's true. We proved it. We had a company that 6x its revenue, took the market cap from 300 million to 2.6 billion, expanded to 176 countries, and we just sell oil in a can. Not sexy. No, we don't. We existed to create positive, lasting memories by solving problems in factories, homes, and workshops of the world. We solved problems and we created opportunities by creating a culture where people know they belong and know they matter. My new book that will be out next year is called Any Dumb Ass Can Do It. Because I'm the dumbass. And what does that mean is that if you know the ingredients that go into building a great culture, and you respect that the people around you are the ones that are going to make it happen, and you empower them through coaching and guiding, any dumb ass can do it. And we know that because it's done. And I'll finish with my favorite quote from Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. And we were able to do it. And it wasn't about me, because, g'day, I'm Garry Ridge. I'm the consciously incompetent, probably wrong, and roughly right Chairman Emeritus of WD-40 Company. Thank you.